Today, we're going to be doing a little Texas State Volleyball Finals recap. I'm going to give you some of my takes on some of the things that I think are interesting. So stay tuned for that. So I get to go to the state championship finals here in Texas almost every year. For the last 7 years, I've been able to do that. And it's usually a lot of fun. I get to hang out with some club coaches, college coaches, sometimes friends, buddies, meet new people. And so it's always entertaining. I get to see a lot of the athletes that we've worked with, either individually or through clubs, get to talk to parents, get to say congrats after they win a state championship. And that is always exciting and fun. And so I enjoy going every year, really regardless of who wins and who loses. I don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak, personally or even business-wise, just there watching good volleyball, cheering on our athletes. And so when it comes to watching the matches, I don't have a ton invested while I'm watching. I usually just get to sit back and enjoy. And this year, I felt like most of the matches were boring. Not from the perspective of bad athletes or bad volleyball. The matches were so one-sided. For the most part, one team was in charge and dominated throughout the entire match. Now, there's one exception to that, one of the last matches that went 5, and that wasn't exciting just because it went 5, but it was exciting because it was back and forth. There was a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Both teams took control at different points of the match, but that was really the only match that I felt did that. A lot of the other matches, 3-0, fairly one-sided. Even the ones that were a little bit close, I didn't really ever feel like the team that lost was actually going to win. Like, it never really felt like they had a shot to win. And so the matches were just one-sided. And just going through some of these matches for you and giving you a little bit of what I'm talking about here. So the first match I watched was the Clifton Boyd match. And that match was pretty close in the first 2 sets. Boyd won 25-23, 25-21, and then the third set was 25-10. The Lavernia-Decatur match, that one was almost entertaining. I think it would have been more entertaining from a volleyball perspective. Again, I don't have a dog in the fight, just someone watching and observing. The Decatur-Lavernia match, Lavernia won that first set, which sent it 4, which made it a fun match to watch. But really, after that first set, Decatur pretty much took over. 25-20, 25-18. The fourth set, 26-24, was fairly back and forth. Lavernia, for the most part, they had 2 outside hitters that were really fun to watch play volleyball. But as a team, they hit 0, I think, in the match. And so Decatur basically was in control. When they lost the first set, it felt like they were the ones making mistakes. I don't want to say necessarily all unforced errors, but they were the ones that were making mistakes. And when they fixed those in sets 2, 3, and 4, then they seemed in control. The Wimberley-Eagle Mountain match, I felt like was going to be maybe more entertaining than it was. The third set that Wimberley won was a tight set. They won 25-22. But again, Eagle Mountain won the first set 25-15, 25-20, and then they won the fourth set 25-18. So those 3 sets that they won were fairly one-sided. Again, great athletes. So I'm not taking away anything from the athletes that were playing. Really good athletes. Again, fun to watch them play and be super athletic and jump really high and hit really hard. All of that was fun. But as a match, as a kind of a state tournament, these matches were fairly one-sided. Eagle Mountain just dominated, especially in the fourth set. The Highland Park match, again, 5A, Division I, Highland Park won 25-18, 25-22, 25-17. A&M Consolidated just couldn't really keep up with the athletes that Highland Park has, and Highland Park just dominated. The one that you would be like, okay, Jason, this one for sure, the Argyle-Cedar Park match. That match was for sure back and forth, very tight. Some of the closest sets you can have, 26-24, 25-22, 27-25. But in watching that match and sitting there, I felt like Cedar Park, not that they coasted, but they stayed really consistent in what they did. And it was Argyle that was going up and down, couldn't put the ball away, maybe when they really needed to. But Argyle, I never really felt like watching that match that they were actually going to win. It didn't ever feel like that. There were a few moments here and there where they got a lead and Cedar Park came back. Again, tight sets, not bad volleyball, but fairly one-sided. The Nelson-Pearland match, that one was just, the Byron Nelson team is just phenomenal. I did a write-up on them last year when they won state. Just probably some of the most efficient volleyball I've ever seen in my life. And it was more of the same this year when they played Pearland 25-18, 25-17, 25-19. You've got a setter that's crazy good, 2 outside hitters that are crazy good, other athletes on that team that are real good. Obviously, Pearland has talent as well, but that Byron Nelson team is just so efficient. It's hard to play against an outside hitter for 3 matches that's going to get 3 sets that's going to get double-digit kills on you without necessarily trying. And with Byron Nelson, you have to do that for 6 rotations because they have 2 outside hitters that can do that to you. The best match, volleyball-wise, that was the most entertaining, right? Again, not that it was bad volleyball. I'm not trying to say that, but just entertaining as someone who likes sitting and watching volleyball. And when sets go 3-0, especially for a state finals, it's, I want more. I want more volleyball. Let me watch more volleyball. The South Lake Carroll Austin match definitely was the most entertaining. Tons of ups and downs. The first set was really close. You felt like there was a lot riding on that set, 27-25. And then Austin won the next 2, 17-25, 23-25. And then South Lake fairly dominant in the 4th set, 25-19, and then came out in the 5th set, won 15-10. Just a lot of weapons on that South Lake Carroll team. I thought Austin did a really good job of combating them when they could, in positions that they could. But I think in the end, the South Lake Carroll team was just probably overall too physical. So again, good volleyball, not bad volleyball, but just maybe not as entertaining as you would like a state championship final to be. Okay, so my second takeaway from the state finals, and I didn't deep dive into every team and look at all of their stats and lineups from the entire season. I didn't do that. This is just totally from my perspective. And from my perspective, one of my takeaways from state finals was there were almost no lineup changes. And I'm not talking about just rotating from rotation 1 to 2 or 6 to 5 or anything like that. Like just in general, the teams that were winning in 3 kept their lineup out on the floor. The teams that were losing in 3 kept their same lineup out on the floor. I think it was Livernia that switched their outsides at some point, if I remember correctly. But that was probably one of the biggest shifts that I noticed, and I didn't really notice a ton. Now, I'm not following along. I'm not writing the rotation. I'm not doing any sort of scouting on anybody. And so potentially I missed something. But it is something that stood out to me a little bit where I'm not noticing this athlete that's hitting almost 0 or potentially negative. She's not getting yanked off the floor. Those types of things basically looked like the same group on repeat. And that was 3A, 4A, 5A, and 6A. Not a ton of changes. And it stood out to me because I think it's important for athletes and parents to understand that is college volleyball. You have a lineup, you have a 10, maybe 12 person roster of athletes that play. You have 17, 18 athletes on the roster, but you have 10 to 12 that are for sure going to play, and the other third basically aren't going to play. And that was fairly evident at state. I feel like that applies to college as well. And it's something that I think families, athletes need to take note of. What you saw at state, rosters not changing. I'm sure a lot of people were talking about it or whispering about it. Oh, why didn't this coach make a change? Why didn't that coach make a change? Sometimes you just stay with the group that got you there, right? And there's, in my opinion, necessarily nothing wrong with doing that. Can you make certain changes here or there to a lineup maybe to help an athlete out if they're not playing great? I think you should. Give them an opportunity to take a break, take a breather, get their head back in it, and then throw them back on the court. But certainly can't always fault college coaches for sticking with the lineup that has got them to that point. And so that's something that I think athletes and families should take note of. When you get to college, you have that starting roster. When that roster gets set, there's not a whole lot of changes that are going to happen. And that stood out to me. Okay, so the third thing that stood out to me at the state finals was Libero play. I don't know all the Liberos that played at the state championship. I don't know all of them extremely well. The ones I do know, again, I thought played very well. But what I noticed from all those Liberos at state, none of them were doing midline passing. Every single one of them taking a lot of balls outside of their body, left and right. I thought Briley at Boyd passed a ton of balls outside her body. Gigi at Highland Park passed a ton of balls outside of her body. Collins at South Lake Carroll passed a ton of balls outside of her body. She's a really fun player to watch, freshman, definitely entertaining and fun to watch from a volleyball perspective. But really good libero play, I think, across the board from all those teams, which I think says a lot. But a lot of athletes, a lot of liberos, again, most of the ones I watched at State, especially in serve receive, taking balls outside of their body and not necessarily, okay, I'm going to try to pass this ball midline and I just can't get there. A lot of them are just planning on taking the ball outside of their body almost every single time and doing it well. It was not a panic move. It wasn't a last-ditch effort, gotta get the ball and doing it outside of my body. Very controlled movements with what they were doing with their platform and their feet. And that was something that definitely stood out to me when it came to the state finals. And that's it. Those are my thoughts from state finals in Texas. Looking forward to next year, looking forward to club season. Let me know what topic you want me to cover next when it comes to recruiting, college volleyball, and I'm willing to talk about it. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Let me know if you have any other questions in the comments, and make sure you check out that next video.